Well, without further ado, please give it up for Tom McDonald! So, Tom.
Hello, yes,
Hi.
thank you for having me.
No, it's great to have you. I always like to start off the question kind of open in terms of like, why music? What made you start with your love of music?
I guess it was my dad, really. I think growing up, just having music always around and always playing in the house, and I think, well, my older brother is a banker and my younger brother works at a family business, so I thought, well, I really need to do something a bit different, don't I? And I think my dad would have wanted one of us to at least go to music, and it was just for me.
One of your parents wanted you to go to music?
Oh yeah, I think my dad, because then I could take him to gigs. I think that was that was the idea. But yeah, so I think starting out mostly, knowing that you want to work in music sometimes is the biggest obstacle because there are so many different areas you can work in. I think narrowing down where you want to work is probably the hardest bit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. I think one of the stats that always hit me was that it's a multi-billion-pound industry. So there are jobs out there. It's just working out where the jobs are, right?
Yeah.
You often see the ones like the Beyoncés, which are very few and far between. But yeah, I get sort of sidetracked. So going from there, so sort of working out that it was something you wanted to go to, how did you then sort of put that plan into action?
So I wouldn't recommend going this way. It was a very strange way that I went. So I kind of, I started out in film because I was quite interested in film. A friend of mine said, my auntie's a producer, do you want to come and work at Pinewood Studios? And I was like, oh, well, I'd love to work and understand how production side of it works. So I did that for about 2 years, and then after kind of working on a couple of sort of indie films, I decided that I really wanted to work on the soundtrack and element and how they get put together. And I think the whole idea back then was, nearly 10 years ago, music supervision was a really, really new thing, and I don't think people were saying, oh, well, I want to be a music supervisor, because it was kind of quite niche. I think as well, people didn't really want to put their tracks on ads. It wasn't seen as a cool thing, so it wasn't a huge industry back then. So after film, I then worked a little bit for Hospital Records, and then I worked a little bit for a radio plugin company, basically to give myself a bit of an understanding on how the different areas worked. I kind of wanted to sort of sample it all, and then I moved into TV, and I did music for TV, which is basically clearing music for TV shows all day, every day, which sounds fun, but some of the shows were like, one of the shows we worked on was Ashley Banjo's Secret Street Crew. So people would come in with a demo that they'd ripped off YouTube and then remixed themselves, and then came and said, I'm going to dance to this. Let's put it on TV. And it's like, right, well, there's 3 things you've done that are totally illegal in the process. So I did that for about 6 months, but actually, it's for me, it's always about, I got a great understanding for how TV and music works. And TV and music can be quite complicated. You need to register everything correctly, and if it's not part of the blanket license, and they can't use it, and it sort of goes on. And I did that for about 6 months. And then after that, I wanted to work more in the advertising side. So what I basically did was I thought, right, well, I'm happy to work, maybe trying to show that I'm really keen, and just email as many people as possible to see if I can work for a music supervision company. So I ended up emailing loads and loads and loads of people, and one person got back to me, which is actually probably a common story in the music industry. One person will get back to you, and that happened, and they got back to me, and she said, let's come out and talk about it. And I sat down, and then I think I did 3 days, and they said, hey, look, we're going to send you 3 films. You choose whatever music you want to put on them, and then send them back to us. And they were ads, and I was like, right, that is the ultimate test. I hope they like my music taste. But so I did that, and then after 3 days of kind of doing bits and bobs, I started working full time. So I did I did about 8 months there, and I would say it was one of my favorite roles in the music industry, because you literally listen to music all day. and you'll get a brief and it says, hey, can you find a song like Uptown Funk? And then it's my job to find 10 songs that sound kind of a little bit like that we cut to picture for an advert. And any gig and stuff that you want to go to, everyone in publishing and record labels want to take you to the gigs. So I did that for about 8 months, and then actually a company called Songs Music Publishing got in touch. Sorry, it's quite a long story.
No, this is what I'm actually just thinking we got it up there as well. It's kind of like the abridged version, I think.
And here we go, yeah. So Songs Music Publishing, they got in touch, just in case I forget. Songs got in touch and they said, hey, look, we don't currently have someone doing sync in the UK, and sync basically is, for a publisher, it was someone that is actively working the catalogue, pitching it for TV, games, trailers, ads, anything, They didn't have someone, and they said, can you come in and work for us? And at that time they had like Jose Gonzalez, who else did we have? We ended up having like Lord, The Weeknd, Diplo, so it was a really cool catalogue. I worked there for about 6 years, making contacts kind of all over, and that's kind of a lot of cold calling and a lot of meetings and lots of kind of taking clients out. And basically you want to be ahead of people, in terms of you want them to email you first and say, hey, look, I want to find something like this. Do you have this kind of music? So I did that for 6 years, and then funnily enough, Kobalt, the company that I currently work for, they bought Songs, but I didn't move over with that. I actually worked around here, so I worked at Ultra for about 8 months at a dance label, doing the same, working record side and publishing side. Really enjoyed working the record label side. I found that working record side meant that you could work a little bit closer with the artist. You can kind of get involved in brand partnerships. I think you just work a lot closer with the artist, and for me that was something that I really wanted to do. And
what kind of artists did you get to work with?
Ultra.
Yeah.
So we had Sophie Tucker. She was my favourite. I think Benny Benassi. But yeah, so I liked working there with and Stealth as well, who I think records around here all the time. Actually, we managed to get him on FIFA, which is cool. So yeah, a lot of that. So I really enjoyed working closely. So Kobalt got in touch and they said, we're looking for someone to come and do label side at AWAL, which AWAL is a Kobalt company, and it's like a little label that sits inside Kobalt, and I mean I can go into a little bit.
Yeah, actually I think that would be good if you explain label side just for everybody here.
Okay, so I mean, just to going back to basics as well, like the two main elements, we've got music publishing and the record labels, and a lot of the time when someone has a deal, they might be completely separate places. I think people offer completely different deals. So, but for what we do at AWAL is we structure. So we work like a real record label, a proper record label, but it's like a 3-tiered system. So anyone can sign up online. And your music will be listened to and checked, and you're signed on by what's your social media following like, how many streams do you have, it's kind of calculated like that, what does it sound like, and if you were to put a tour on, how would it be, and what's the engagement with your fans, so all of that comes into play. The second tier is the plus deal, where we would offer you some funding to maybe shoot a music video, or however you really want whatever you really want to use the money for in terms of marketing, or
How much do you guys give?
So actually, it completely depends. So the deals can be anywhere from $5,000 to $75,000, and yeah, it's quite. But what we try and maintain is we want to come on as an advisor. We do not want to. We don't want you to sign your music to us and then say you're not releasing that song or that song or that song. Where I think maybe a lot of the other record labels, they take a little bit more control. Where we want to give back control to the artist. I think one of the bigger artists we have is Example, and he just wants full control over everything in terms of his music videos and everything. And we've had lots of chats with his managers, and they have a clear idea what they want to do. And our job is to just make sure if they need anything from us, is to give them that.
What kind of things do you offer support-wise, or do you offer any sort of
support-wise? Again, so my job specifically, I work in sync. So my job is to help find opportunities in TV, games, trailers, films, ads, everything. I cover everything. But there's a marketing arm as well that help with if you want to put together a lyric video, or if you're looking to ideas for a music video, or you need people to contact at Spotify. That's sort of all encompassing. But mine specifically is sync. And going back to the 3 tiers, the last tier would be the recordings deal. So the recordings deal will be like a full-blown record deal, which will be kind of like Tom Misch and Lauv and things like that.
So when you're looking through your catalogue of music, right?
Yeah.
How do you choose a song for a specific brief?
Okay, so I think the best way to explain what I do to how it works as well, as sync-wise, is to explain that I think there are main elements. So the main element, let's say we have a brand, Adidas. Adidas then say, right, we need a marketing agency to build a campaign. So they give a brief to a marketing agency. Yeah. That marketing agency then says, okay, we're going to get Snoop Dogg in it, or we're going to do a re-record, or we're going to do this. That marketing agency then speaks to a music supervisor. So that music supervisor has contacts all over. So they'll have publishers and managers and record labels. So the music supervisor's job is to understand what the agency have given them. They've said, look, we want something cool and upbeat and urban and hip hop, or we want to do a re-record of something. So it's then the music supervisor's job to farm that out to publishers and record labels, and this is why my job is to constantly keep in touch with the music supervisors, because you don't want to miss out on that opportunity, you don't want to miss out on that email, or you don't want to miss out on the search that he's looking for. So to give you a sort of understanding of how much I reckon, as the music supervisor sends out, he'll be sending probably to 10, 15 maybe record labels or publishers. Each of us will then send him 10 tracks. So the music supervisor's got to go through about 200 songs. Once he gets those 200 songs, he then will condense it to 10, and then he'll probably cut those 10 to video. Once the supervisor's got the 10 songs, he'll send it to the ad agency. The ad agency will be like, hey, we like this, this, and this. The Adidas like this. Send it to Adidas. Adidas will then say, we like number 1, can you find some more that sound like number 1? Then we go through the process again, we'll do a rebrief, and then another 200 tracks. So it is kind of potluck in a way.
Yeah.
But what will often happen is you'll get let's say, and my job is to completely understand the catalogue, understand how much it'll cost to have, let's say, Diplo in an ad, or how much to cost. So my job is to completely understand all of that before I pitch it. So the music supervisor comes to me and says, can you find me a song that sounds like Uptown Funk, but I want female vocals and I need it to have a lot of piano in it? Like, honestly, some of the briefs that we get, you would not believe. We had one recently that said, we're looking for a song, an emotional, uplifting song, and it's from a mattress company, and if the lyrics could say anything about changing a mattress every 7 years, it would be great. I mean, honestly, some of the things that come through, and you're like, this song doesn't exist, and if it does, we don't have it at all. So some of the things that people are looking for are unbelievably obscure, like just...
Do you ever work with composers?
Yeah,
so something on that, like obviously is quite specific, and then we're like, listen, we've just got this through, how quick a turnaround?
Yeah, I mean, so the composition side as well is quite interesting. I think supervisors will often have a huge list of composers they already work with. With our artists, I think they'll come to us and say, they'll come to us and say, oh, I like the sound of this artist, and this artist, and this artist, do they do bespoke? So they'll come to us and we'll say, okay, right, well, we can try and write a bespoke song for something like this. But it'll usually be if they like the artist already or fall in love with his or her sound, and then they'll ask us to try and write bespoke. But, composition-wise, supervisors will have like a big list of people they contact, and and the problem is, I think it's super competitive as a composer, because you'll have a lot of people that are willing to just turn around a demo in their bedroom for free, which is quite tough. I think a lot of supervisors have that where, when I started there was like a demo fee involved, and now I think so many people are just happy to just with
Sorry,
that
they
demo. Yeah. But yeah, going back to your question, I went on a tangent there. Going back to your question about how I find music. So we tag everything as well. So I think the AWAL catalogue is about 15,000 songs, which sounds like a lot.
It's not actually,
but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
We had about 10,000 songs. Ultra was about 60,000. That was a lot for me.
And is that 10,000? Sorry, when you say 15,000, is that across the entire repertoire? So anybody who even signs on to the third?
No. So that's a great question. So what we try and do as well at AWAL is we heavily curate our catalogue because we offer the service where anyone can sign up. We don't always take sync rights for that, and the reason is we would never want to take something on for sync that we just don't think that we could pitch or that we don't think we could find placements for, because ultimately, we wouldn't offer, it wouldn't be a good service that we can offer you, and we'd prefer to give you, we'd prefer to let you do what you can do with your music rather than us. So it's heavily curated. The AWAL catalogue, I'm not actually sure how big that is, but I think we probably take on about 20% of the music that we get submitted for sync, just because there's a vast amount of music there is. But the way that we do it at the moment, actually we're building, because we're a technology company, we're building a sync tool where you can search a keyword and female vocals and, certain tempos and stuff like that. But at the moment, everything is just tagged in terms of instrumentals or vocals or styles or genres, and then we'll actually, it sounds like prehistoric, I use my iTunes, so I have loads and unbelievable amount of playlists, and then it's knowing your catalogue, knowing what you want to listen to, or a lot of my job as well, it's trying to interpret what on earth you think they're asking for, because with they want lyrics about a mattress turning every 7 years, you've got to think, well, okay, that's never going to happen, but what do I think that they want? What sort of sound do I think they're looking for here? It's sometimes it's understanding. I mean, sometimes you'll get one like that, and I will actually just call the supervisor and be like, "Come on, no one sent you that song, have they? What is it you're really looking for?" So it's interpreting the brief and making sure that you give them exactly what they want. Because another really helpful thing is if you imagine a supervisor has emailed 10 different record labels, and all of them come back with a bunch of tracks. If one of those record labels just sends them a bunch of stuff that's coming out next month because that's a priority, so unhelpful. They will not email that person again, knowing that they're just going to pitch a priority rather than, everything
bespoke service.
Exactly, and we want to offer that where we want to give you exactly what you're looking for, rather because you'll come back again, rather than here's 10 singles that don't work but are coming out. I think a lot of people might fall into that trap, and it's easy to do, but it's just not helpful. If you imagine he's probably listening to 20 seconds of each song, and you've got 20 seconds for him to like it or not, and then you'll hear in a couple of months he'll be like, hey, I like this one that you sent 2 months ago, because it's just such a long process.
What's been the hardest brief for you to get over the line, or the most difficult one that you had?
That's a good question. So, okay, here's one. So I was working on, and because I work in the SIG department, my job is to know the value of something, to know how much something is, or how much is the market value in a song. So I got an email from someone, and they said, we're making a toy, and we want to use Diplo Bubble Butt on it. And I was like, okay.
Is this for kids? Is it a toy for kids, or?
Because when something like that comes to me, there's two things I need to think about. I need to think, right, how much do we charge? And then I'm going to have to also speak to management and try and convince them that this is a good idea, or say, definitely do not do this. So it came through, they sent a little picture, and they said, hey, so we're going to use bubble butt, and when you press the belly, the butt shakes and it goes bubble butt, bubble butt, bubble butt, bubble butt. How much do you think? And I was like, I've never in my life. I was like, so then trying to figure out what I think the value of that is, or what it costs. And anyway, we came to some number and agreed it, and I took it to management. I said, bit of a strange one. I've never actually licensed music for tour before. What do you think? And they're like, we love it. This is so cool. We've never, So stuff like that is always completely baffles me. But then other things, other difficult ones. I mean, some of these, I've literally just done a technology brand that I pitched for in November, and it's just been going on, and they're working out the different terms, and a lot of these take a lot of time.
Yeah,
so we often say with sync and with pitching, it takes roughly about 3 months to start getting traction on something. So we could be pitching something for months and months and months and not hear back, and it's just in the supervisor's kind of magic pot of their favourite songs. So
and you don't know.
You never, sometimes you don't know. With TV, you could be pitching, and then because of the way the blanket license works, you don't actually know until it goes on TV, and you're like, oh, they used it. That's good.
So, are you working more on the creative side or the technical side then?
I'd say,
do you still do a lot of searching? Like, do you still get to listen to a lot of music every day?
Yeah. So we still, I mean, that's my role primarily is to kind of, what I want to do as well is I want to make supervisors realise the cool new stuff that we have coming out, a nice catalogue, and a lot of it's sort of entertaining and taking them to gigs and shows, and briefs is the primary way at the moment that everyone finds out all the new music. So I'll be working on probably 3 to 7 briefs a day or so. Some of them are super simple. Some of them are like, we want female vocals, acoustic about sunshine. Which is, I mean, that's just a rough sort of, sometimes you get some of that where it's like, okay, I know there's 3 or 4 different things that we have for this. So in that sense, some of them are quite easy. The more difficult ones, I'm trying to think. I think as well, you want to try, and this is another, actually, something I forgot, with trailers, with film trailers, what people forget is that they have to work almost 6 months in advance. So people who work on the film trailers, they want something that's just about to be released as they're releasing the trailer. And a friend of mine, she works at a trailer house, and she said, if you can give me the song 6 months before it's released, then it'd be really helpful. And I was like, a lot of the people haven't made it. Like a week before it's released isn't finished sometimes, Okay. And she said the reason we want to do that is because if you imagine, we have so many people that need to approve it. So my first thing is I want to find a cool song that no one else has had on a trailer. We want to be the one that uses this cool song. Then it takes 2 months to go through testing and 2 months to show sort of different audiences and get feedback on it. And then after that, they then hope someone else hasn't used it, because obviously we can't send music and say, we won't let anyone use it until you've used it on the trailer. It just doesn't, sometimes it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So they just have such a long lag that you might not hear about it for 6 months, which is crazy.
And then going back in terms of getting into that, let's say, cool song list that you're going to pitch, how would someone, let's say, in the audience right now who is, maybe just starting out or maybe doesn't have, any sort of deals that they've ever had yet, like, how do they get on that list?
I think the most important thing that I've learned, actually, and a funny thing happened recently. I won't name the band, but a band made a song, and it was very much like, wow, this sounds like it's kind of written for an ad, which a lot of people don't like. And we sent it to a huge technology brand and management, where they were really happy about it. They're like, how cool is this? We're going to get loads of ads with this. And we're like, it does sound like that was what it was written for. Quite a big band, mind you. And technology company came back and said, we're not interested. It sounds like it was written for sync.
Wow.
So a lot of people now, and I think a lot of the sort of like the Adidas and the Apple and all of kind of the big technology companies and the people that are the forefront of getting cool music out there want something. I say cool, want something that might not be a sound that is super popular, or want something that is unique and totally unique. I think the most important thing in sync, and the most important thing when listening to something that I hear it for the first time, I'm like, is it dynamic and is it unique? And that I think is something, and we get there a lot of time where someone's like, hey, I've written a song about shampoo, it'd be perfect for a Head and Shoulders ad. And you're like, I think a lot of people assume there's like a big list of all these people, and I'm like, okay, I'll pick Head and Shoulders and I'll send it to them. And it just doesn't work like that. In terms of day to day, we don't really know what people are going to be working on, whether it's going to be a British casting or whether it's going to be a different TV show or a trailer. So I would say the best bit of advice I would say is to not choose, not write something with sync in mind, because I think people can tell, and people don't like it. People sometimes stand back and say, no, we need something completely different. This isn't right. You want something a little bit more unique. I think.
So what kind of music, this is probably a really good question for you, what kind of music are you listening to, or what kind of music is exciting you at the moment?
What kind of music do I listen to? That's a very interesting one. I think I would listen to, I'm a huge fan of Mac DeMarco and stuff like that, but you would never hear that in an ad, or you'd never hear that in certain things. So I think sometimes we'll get something from an artist, and I remember doing a playback with one of our clients for music, and I just thought, what kind of music was, because everyone can play 6 pop songs and they sound kind of similar. What kind of music is going to make her think, wow, what is this? This is cool. This is like, and funny enough, one of the main songs that gets requested, 2 of the main songs that we get are Uptown Funk and Black Skinhead. So Black Skinhead, literally every week, people say, can you find me something like Black Skinhead? Because when that came out, that was so unique and so sort of, I suppose a lot of people think he copied quite a few other people, but that sound was incredibly unique in that time. And then Uptown Funk again was quite unique, and now things every time keep shifting. Sometimes also we'll get an advert as a reference. So there's like a Levi's ad recently with that Makiba song. That gets referenced all the time, because when that sound came, people were like, wow, this is totally different to what you would imagine. And then people then start requesting songs that sound like that, and then it'll come in waves. But I think if you have a style, I would stick to it and not try and listen to someone else and say, this sounds quite nice, I'm going to pinch a little bit from there and then make something like that. I think if you have a style, it's just best to stick to it, because sometimes you can tell when you hear something that comes in, it's like, oh, that's close to Uptown Funk.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's tricky then, because sometimes you get some people in and they say, right, you need to sort of experiment with your style as well. And I suppose there's some sort of a happy ground in between where you're like actually experimenting, but you're also saying maybe truth to your musical integrity as well, right?
Yeah. I think experimenting is really good, and sometimes happy mistakes can be absolute bangers, as we say, sync bangers.
What's one of the, because you mentioned obviously 2 songs there, Black Skinhead and Uptown Funk, that were like highly syncable, or people that refer to them a lot. What songs that are coming up over the last maybe year, because obviously they're a little bit older than that now, where you're like, wow, this has been requested so many times, or...
Okay, so funny enough, we signed someone called Little Sims, and she's got a song called Boss, which is, I think, just, if you've heard it, or if you haven't heard it, you have to hear it. It's amazing. I think that sort of female empowerment, sort of raw, if you listen to the instrumental, it's super simple, but when you listen to the vocals on top of it, it's brilliant. Like, that for me, a lot of people, that sound is extremely, extremely popular, because it's just quite honest, I think. It's not trying to be something else, it's just straight up. So yeah, we get requests for that quite a lot. We're trying our best to sort of get some bigger ones, but that for me, yeah, I think Little Sims is the one.
Does anybody have any questions? Anyone want to say anything? No? Alright, I think we should. Oh wait, you have a question?
So when you say, okay, I've got a breeze in, it needs to be happy, it needs to reference sunshine, how do you then go into your system and search for it? Is that by memory, using this text?
So half and half actually. Half of it will be me listening to the catalogue as much as possible, learning what we have and knowing kind of the pockets where we don't have it, and then also lyric searches. So let's say sunshine will be a tag word in it. And we have the wonderful Tony in LA who tags and listens to every single song that comes into the system. She'll put like jazz, female vocals, about the sky, flying and sunshine, and then it'll come,
That's amazing.
So songs, we used to do that. We had to do that for all the catalogue, so I used to do that. So I used to tag about 50 songs. I think then you get to know the catalogue a lot better, and then it gives you a better understanding of what you have. So we have a search tool that helps us do that, which is good. But then also you have to know your catalog.